You ever realize you're not just being ignored, you're being erased? That hit me on a vacation with my husband's family. You ever notice how some vacations start with fruity drinks and beach playlists, but end with an existential crisis and a petty revenge plan worthy of a Netflix limited series? Yeah, welcome to Willow Bay. This trip was supposed to be a family getaway, Ethan's family, to be clear. And even though I had that little voice whispering in my head, "Don't go, they don't like you," I told it to sit down and be quiet. I figured I was just overthinking. I told myself, maybe this time will be different. Maybe I wouldn't feel like some substitute teacher the class collectively ignores. Spoiler, it wasn't different. This wasn't just about being left out. This was about being quietly, methodically erased, like I was a smudge on their perfect family photo they couldn't crop out fast enough. Looking back, the signs were always there. The underhanded jabs, the tight smiles. The way Ethan never really stood up for me, just floated along, conflict-averse and checked out. But I let it go. For years. Because I loved him. Because I thought if I just kept being kind, kept showing up, they'd come around. I figured eventually they'd actually see me. Yeah. Nope. So we arrive. Me, Ethan, and his parents, Tom and Linda, at this dreamy coastal resort. Manicured lawns. Infinity pool. The scent of eucalyptus and money in the air. For 5 blissfully naive minutes, I let myself believe this trip might be a turning point. Maybe we'd have too much wine, share beach stories, and someone would say, you know, she really is part of the family now. And then we went to dinner. It was this fancy oceanside spot, dim lighting, guys strumming John Mayer covers in the corner. The host led us to a long table. I reached for the seat next to Ethan, like any normal married couple would, and before I could sit, Tom flagged the waiter down. "Oh, there must be a mistake," he said. "She'll need her own table," I laughed, assuming it was a dry joke. Rookie mistake. Linda didn't even look up. "It's just how we do things," she said, flipping through the menu like I wasn't standing there. And Ethan? Just shrugged. It's just their way. So I sat alone. At a separate table. Like an awkward extra they didn't know what to do with. Other diners noticed. A woman even gave me a pity look, the kind reserved for people who just got dumped in public. A waiter offered me free dessert. Somehow, that made it worse. Any rational person might have packed up and left. But I didn't. I told myself it was just a weird one-off. Family quirks, right? Wrong. Next morning I got up early, put on a sundress I'd packed just for the trip, and headed down for breakfast, thinking maybe I could reset the vibe. But there was no one in the lobby, no texts, nothing. I wandered until I finally spotted them, already mid-meal, laughing like it was a sitcom scene. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. Tom barely glanced at me. "We figured you'd figure it out." Linda sipped her coffee. "It's just how we do things." Ethan? Didn't even pause chewing. Might have been a croissant. That's when it clicked. This wasn't passive. This was planned. Executed like clockwork. And the worst part? Ethan wasn't a bystander. He was part of it. Right there beside them, acting like I was invisible. Or worse, a mistake. The rest of the trip followed the same script. Private boat tour? Found out through Instagram. Wine tasting? Caught them dressed up and heading out as I passed them in the lobby. Spa appointments. Group dinners. All of it went on without me. One night I asked, calmly, "You couldn't send me one text?" Ethan shrugged. "It's just how they do things." By day 4, I stopped asking, stopped hoping. If they wanted to erase me, fine, but they didn't count on what I'd do next. Because while they were out pretending I didn't exist, I was back at the hotel room, quietly dismantling their whole fantasy. See, I'd booked everything. The hotel, in my name. The rental car, on my card. All those fancy activities, my email, my reservations. So I opened my laptop, took one last sip of cheap wine, and started canceling. All the rooms. Gone. Rental car? Canceled. That waterfront dinner Ethan couldn't wait for? Not happening. Linda's can't miss spa day? Yeah. She'd be lucky to get a vending machine granola bar and a hot towel. They'd wake up to a whole new itinerary. One where the woman they tried to ghost held the keys to their perfect little trip, while little doll watch, and I couldn't wait to watch the cracks form. Right after I canceled the spa appointment, Linda's precious brag-worthy can't-miss moment, I hung up the phone and just exhaled. That was the final stitch. The masterpiece was complete. I grabbed my suitcase, swiped the rental car keys, booked under my name, thank you very much, and walked out of that resort like I just dropped the mic in a silent room. No tearful goodbye, no note. Just gone. They were probably still clinking cocktail glasses and smugly toasting their perfect trip while I was already heading down the coast, windows down, radio up, Rosemont bound, and absolutely done. Once I got there, I didn't even try to be modest. I booked myself a gorgeous suite. Ocean view, balcony, bed that could fit 6 regrets and a bottle of champagne. I ordered a steak dinner from room service that cost more than a therapy session, kicked off my shoes, and sat outside with a glass of wine, watching the waves like they owed me an apology. And for the first time in, honestly, years, I felt peace. The next morning I woke up early, but not out of obligation. No one was waiting on me. No awkward glances across a breakfast table I wasn't invited to. Just me, my coffee, a sea breeze drifting through gauzy curtains, and the realization that I didn't miss them. Not even a little. Of course, peace is a fragile thing, especially when you've just triggered a meltdown. My phone lit up like Times Square on New Year's. First Ethan, then Linda, then Tom. Calls, texts, voicemails. I didn't pick up. Didn't need to. I already knew what was happening. Press happening. In my mind, I saw it playing out like a beautifully petty movie. Maybe Tom answered a knock at the door, expecting room service, and instead got hit with, "Your reservation was canceled, sir." Maybe Linda checked her phone to review the day's spa plan and found a string of confirmation cancellations instead. And Ethan, probably still in bed, still assuming everything would be handled for him, must have listened to it all unravel in real time. No hotel rooms, no rental car. No boat tours, no spa, no fancy dinner by the water, pricken. Just the echo of their own entitlement. Eventually I gave in and looked at the messages. Ethan was spiraling, starting out confused, then concerned, then just flat out frantic. "Where are you? Why are all the plans falling apart? What did you do?" I picked up. Just once. He sounded stunned, like he couldn't believe I'd really left, like the idea of me walking away with the keys hadn't crossed his mind. "You left?" he asked, like it wasn't painfully obvious. "Yeah," I said, calm as you please. I did. He kept asking what I'd done, as if I hadn't spent 3 days sitting alone like a ghost on the fringes of his family photo. As if exclusion wasn't a clear enough message. But now that I'd left, suddenly I was the one who needed to explain? I didn't bother trying to make him understand. Honestly, he wasn't ready for the truth. Not then. Back in Willow Bay, things kept falling apart. The resort was fully booked, so they ended up crammed in some dingy motel off the highway. Flickering neon, curtains that smelled like stale fries, the whole works. With no car, they were stuck using rideshare apps. And out there? That meant surge pricing and 20-minute waits. That dinner Tom had hyped up for weeks? Gone. They landed at some overpriced tourist trap with soggy crab cakes and ketchup stains on the menus. And Linda, showed up to the spa all dolled up, expecting eucalyptus oil and herbal tea. She got a confused receptionist and a canceled appointment instead. From what I heard later, she made quite the scene. If Yelp had a meltdown rating, she'd have earned 5 stars. The angry texts kept coming. Ethan couldn't believe I'd actually gone through with it. That I'd really left. But I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I wasn't trying to get back at anyone. I was just done. For once, I didn't fold. I didn't play nice, or try to smooth things over. I stood up, walked out, and gave myself the dignity they never would. I thought that would be the end of it. A quiet little rebellion. A footnote. But then I got a message from Megan, Ethan's cousin. We weren't close, but we'd always been cordial. What she said stopped me cold. Honestly, good for you. They did the same thing to his ex-wife. Wait, what? I sat up, reread the message. Megan explained that during a trip years ago, they pulled the same stunt. Same treatment. Same isolation. The cold shoulders, the quiet cruelty. And Ethan? He was there for that too. That's when it hit me. Jurymen hit me. Jurymen hit me. Jurymen hit me. Jurymen hit me. This was tradition. And Ethan knew it the whole time. When Megan told me Ethan's ex-wife had gone through the exact same thing, it felt like the floor dropped out from under me. I could barely speak. I just sat there, replaying every cold glance, every passive dig, and suddenly they weren't random moments anymore. They were steps in a well-practiced routine. Megan said Emily had left halfway through a family trip, just like I had. A month later, divorce papers. Horror. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a cycle. Megan confessed she hadn't said anything sooner because she figured I already knew. But when she saw how the family was treating me, she realized Ethan had never told me the truth. And she was right. He hadn't. He let me walk blind into that vacation like I was just another pawn in a family game I didn't even know I was playing. That night, Ethan called again. I answered. Not because I missed him or wanted clarity, I just needed to hear him confirm it. His voice was sharp, already defensive. "You need to come back," he said. "We need to talk. You made this worse than it had to be." I didn't respond right away. I just listened to the sound of someone realizing their grip had finally slipped. He tried to explain, tried to spin the whole thing like I'd blown it out of proportion. "You know how my parents are," he said. "They're just traditional. You can't take it so personally." Traditional? That was his defense? I almost laughed. This wasn't about quirks or old-fashioned habits. This was about power. About keeping women in their place. About testing how much we'd put up with before breaking. And Ethan? He'd seen it all before, and let it happen again. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I just hung up. Because the second that call ended, it wasn't just the vacation or the fight that was over. It was everything. The relationship. The future I thought we had. Gone. I stared at my phone for a while after, heart thudding. Because if Ethan had lied about what happened with his ex, what else had he twisted? What other red flags had I ignored while trying to fit into a picture I was never even part of? Curiosity and dread started to mix, and I did something I'd never done before. I opened Facebook and typed in Emily's name. Her profile was private. No real info, no recent photos. But one name stood out. Cara, her sister. I clicked through and saw she had a few public posts. See. That's where things got darker. See. I found a post from right after Emily and Ethan's divorce. It was short, but heavy. "Never let someone's family convince you that you're less than you are. You deserved better, and we tried to tell you." My stomach turned. Underneath the post, I saw a familiar name. Megan, the same cousin who messaged me. She had commented. "I wish she'd listened sooner. At least she's free now." Free. That word hit different. I wasn't free yet, but I was finally waking up to the prison I'd been in. POAs. I debated reaching out. It felt invasive, but I needed clarity. Closure. Answers that Ethan clearly wasn't going to give me. So I sent Kara a message. Honest. Simple. I told her who I was. I said I thought we should talk. She replied within minutes. That's when I knew this wasn't new. She didn't ask who I was. She didn't need backstory. She knew exactly why I was reaching out, and she wasn't surprised. "Yeah," she wrote. "We've been waiting for this." I sat there frozen. I had stepped into a story already halfway written. When I asked if she meant Emily, she said something that made my blood go cold. "Emily wasn't the first," she said. "And she wasn't the last." That's when I saw the full picture. This wasn't about one bad family trip. This was about a pattern, one that ran deep. Ethan and his parents didn't just mistreat the women in their lives. They followed a script. Coldness, isolation, gaslighting. Then the inevitable fallout, where Ethan got to play the victim of yet another overdramatic woman. Cara said they'd seen it happen more than once. Every girlfriend, every partner, same treatment, same story, different name. "Why didn't anyone warn me?" I asked. She said they'd tried. But Ethan had a way of keeping his partners cut off. He'd tell them his family was intense, but harmless. That his exes were unstable, emotional, impossible to please. It was textbook deflection. And by the time the woman started asking questions, it was too late. She was already doubting herself. Exactly what he did to me. He told me Emily was difficult, that she couldn't handle his family, that she always picked fights over nothing. But it wasn't nothing, it was everything. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts. And now I knew I hadn't been losing my mind. I'd been trapped. For the first time, I didn't just feel hurt. I felt betrayed. I had given my time, my heart, my patience to a man who never once stood up for me. Who had let history repeat itself on my back. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay awake thinking about every moment I had convinced myself to stay. Every time I'd chosen grace over confrontation. Every time I'd excused Ethan's silence as shyness or discomfort, when really, it was apathy. But one question kept circling in my mind. Why all the calls? Why the panic? Why was Ethan so suddenly desperate to get me back? And then, Just after sunrise, my phone buzzed again. 5:20 a.m. That's when the real story began to unfold. Just as I was starting to settle into the quiet calm of my Rosemont morning, ocean breeze, fresh coffee, the first peace I'd felt in years, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Local area code. I hesitated. Then I read the message. William. It was from a Willow Bay police officer. Call. He said he needed to speak with me regarding a missing persons report. Filed by my husband. I nearly dropped the mug. Hissing. I called back instantly, heart racing. When the officer picked up, I didn't even wait for a hello. I'm not missing. I blurted. I'm fine, I left on my own. There was a pause, long enough to make my chest tighten, before he asked very carefully, Did you leave voluntarily? I could feel the heat rush to my cheeks. Yes, absolutely. I'm safe, my husband's been calling me non-stop, he knows I'm fine. Turns out, Ethan hadn't told them that. According to him, I'd vanished, left without notice, wasn't answering. He told them he was concerned for my safety. Concerned, that was the word he used. But it wasn't worry. It was strategy. Panic. Rebranded. Ethan didn't file that report out of love. He filed it because he couldn't control the narrative anymore. So I said what needed saying. I was fine. I was safe. And I didn't want to be contacted. The officer asked if I wanted to make a formal request for no further contact. I paused. I paused. And then I said yes. The silence after that felt like a full stop. Not just emotionally. Legally. Officially. This was it. The first real nail in the coffin of our marriage, and I was the one holding the hammer. That should have been the end of it. But you know families like his. They don't go down quietly. The next wave hit within the hour. This time, it wasn't Ethan. It was Linda. Her text came in hot, dripping with self-righteous fury. First came the outrage, then the shame. But mostly, the blame. How dare I involve the police? How could I make such a scene? She spun the story like I'd created this chaos on purpose, like I was the problem. According to her, they had only ever tried to include me, and I, in my cruel, selfish way, had turned it all into a spectacle. He spun the source, I didn't respond. But the last message made my fingers freeze over the screen. If you don't come back, Ethan's gonna make things very difficult for you. There it was. No pretense, no coded language. A threat. Clear, direct, and unmistakable. That's when everything snapped into focus. This wasn't just about control or appearances anymore. This was intimidation. The kind that doesn't even try to hide behind manners. They weren't just trying to preserve a toxic dynamic. They wanted to crush me for stepping out of it. And for a moment, I almost let them. But the woman who sat alone at that table in Willow Bay, she didn't exist anymore. Doing, so I made a new plan. No yelling. No chaos. Just facts. I went online and booked a small conference room in a Rosemont hotel. Simple. Neutral. A table, some chairs, and space for the truth. I invited them all. Ethan, Tom, Linda, and Megan. If they wanted answers, they could hear them straight from me. The next morning, I got there early. The room was quiet, sunlight streaming through the windows like some kind of ironic peace offering. I took the far seat, spine straight, hands steady. This wasn't about revenge. It was about closure. They didn't keep me waiting. Ethan walked in first, stiff and tense. His parents followed, Linda's heels sharp against the floor, Tom wearing his disapproval like cologne. Megan came in last, arms crossed, eyes cautious. She gave me a nod. I returned it. I still didn't know if she was here to back me up or just bear witness. But she came. That was enough. How? They sat, no small talk. Then it began. They wanted answers. Demanded explanations, accused me of being dramatic, ungrateful, over-emotional. Ethan tried to jump in, trying once more to frame it all as a misunderstanding. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flinch. I told them the truth. I reminded them that I was Ethan's wife, that I had been isolated, ignored, humiliated, day after day, while everyone at that table looked away, that I had shown up with hope and had been met with cruelty wrapped in smiles. Then I looked at Ethan, straight into his eyes, and said the thing I'd been holding on to. You saw this happen before, with Emily. You knew exactly how it would go, and you still brought me into it. He didn't respond. He couldn't. The silence said it all. I kept it simple. No drama. No theatrics. Just the facts. Just the truth. Essex. And for the first time, I saw something flicker behind their eyes. Not regret. Not empathy, but recognition. Not enflagraires, they knew what they'd done. Not enflagraire. Maybe they always had. Not enflagraire. I stood to leave. No tears. No last jabs, just done. And in that still heavy room, I felt something shift. Not in them, but in me. I had spoken. And they had no choice but to listen. The second I laid my phone on the table and told them to read the messages, the air in the room changed. Ethan's face drained of color. He didn't even try to play it cool. He just looked rattled. Like the scaffolding he'd been leaning on his whole life had started to crack. Linda jumped in fast, like she always did. She tried to spin it, called it a misunderstanding, a family custom, a misread tone, but it all felt hollow now. I wasn't buying it. And judging by the look on Megan's face, she wasn't either. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I laid it out plain. This wasn't about tradition. It was about control. They didn't welcome new people. They tested them. Pushed and poked until something broke. And Ethan? He let it happen. Not once, not by accident, but by choice. He tried to backpedal, said I was blowing things out of proportion, that I didn't know the full story. So I pointed to my phone again and told him to read the messages. The ones from Emily's sister. The ones that showed this was the full story, and it had been playing on repeat for years. He finally picked it up, scrolled. His expression tightened with every word, like each line was a nail tapping into the shell of denial he'd built around himself. When he reached the end, he set the phone down like it had scorched his palm. It's not proof, he muttered. It's old drama, stuff that doesn't even involve you. That's when Tom chimed in, brushing it all off as irrelevant. Different people, different situations. But I wasn't here to argue with ghosts. I looked straight at Linda and asked about her message, the one from the night before. The one where she said if I didn't return, Ethan would make things difficult. That's when her mask cracked. Even Megan let out a breath, like she'd just realized she was in deeper than she thought. And Ethan? He turned to his mother with a look I'd never seen before. It was like something shifted in him, like he was seeing her, really seeing her for the first time. Linda stumbled over her defense. She claimed it was, quote, just a warning that she hadn't meant it that way. But the damage was done. The words had already carved their message into the room, and everyone could feel it. Ethan looked lost. Betrayed even. But not by me. I waited, just for a second, to see if he'd finally say what needed saying. If he'd step up. Apologize. Admit what I'd endured. What he'd let happen. Instead, all he could offer was, I can fix this. That was the moment it all crystallized. Even now, with the truth in the open, with his parents exposed and the game unraveling, Ethan didn't want to understand. He wanted to control the fallout. Manage the optics. Sweep it under the rug. Not because he loved me. Because it was inconvenient not to. I stood up and told him I wasn't coming back. Hullatoppin'. The room erupted. Linda's voice pitched up, crying victim. Tom huffed about respect. Ethan begged. Softly, then desperately. But I didn't move. I'd spent too long sitting quietly, folding myself into corners, trying to earn space in their lives. That woman was gone. Nums accused me of walking away from a good man. Said I was throwing away a marriage over nothing, but it wasn't nothing. They had thrown it away long before Willow Bay, with every cold shoulder, every exclusion. Every time Ethan said, It's just their way. As I turned to leave, Ethan reached for my arm. Said we should talk. That he could explain. But I'd heard enough over the years. So I walked out. And this time, I didn't look back. The divorce took 8 months. During that time, Ethan went through every stage: denial, begging, blame. Said I was overreacting. That I was giving up on something worth saving. But he didn't understand. I wasn't giving up, I was taking back what was mine. Megan stayed in touch. Sent me the occasional update, though I never asked for them. She said things had unraveled fast after I left. Ethan confronted his parents. It didn't go well. Tom called him weak. Linda wept, claimed I'd turned him against them. It wasn't the breakthrough Ethan wanted. But it was the wake-up call he needed. It didn't change anything for me. I'd already made peace with my decision. Hemmed. I moved back to Rosemont. Found a little apartment near the water. The floors creaked, the windows stuck, but it was mine. I started saying yes to things again. Old friends, long walks, quiet nights. I felt like me again. Months later, I got a message from an unknown number. It was Ethan. I see it now. I'm sorry. I stared at it for a long time. No anger, no sadness. Just a quiet, steady sense of who I was now. Then I set the phone down, walked outside and let the sea breeze take it all. Because I wasn't waiting for closure anymore. I had already lived it.